when Prince Harry agreed to sit down with Piers Morgan. No one expected a calm chat, least of all Piers. Years of friction between the outspoken host and the defiant prince had been simmering. And now, under the studio lights, the air was heavy with unspoken resentment. What was billed as an interview quickly became a duel of words, one that would bruise both reputations and leave millions stunned by how it ended. The Piers Morgan Uncensored studio was unusually still that night. The usual hum had given way to a charged quiet, as if the room itself were waiting for a spark. Piers sat with sharp posture and a composed, ready expression. Opposite him, Prince Harry wore a dark navy suit without a tie, collar slightly open, scruff shadowing a face that looked tired but unyielding. No smile, no nod, just a steady stare, one hand folded over the other, waiting. Piers leaned in, his trademark tone balanced between polite and piercing. "Your Royal Highness, thank you for joining us. It's been some time since you sat for an interview that wasn't, shall we say, curated." Harry smirked. "Piers, unlike you, I don't have to shout for relevance. I'm here because people want truth, not tabloid tantrums." A murmur rippled behind the cameras. Piers didn't flinch, only smiled thinly. "Starting early, then? Let's discuss that truth. You say the media destroyed your peace, yet you've made a career speaking to them. How do you square that?" Harry shifted, confidence palpable. "If I don't tell my story, people like you will tell it for me and twist it." Piers tapped his pen. "Convenient, though, isn't it? You claim to dislike attention, yet you've given more interviews in 3 years than your family combined." Harry gave a dry laugh. "I wouldn't expect you to grasp balance, Piers. There's a difference between controlling your narrative and feeding the noise. You live off noise. I live off truth." The temperature seemed to rise. Piers folded his arms, eyes narrowing. Truth, an interesting word from someone accused of rewriting history in his own book. Harry's mouth tightened. "I'm not rewriting mine, correcting what people like you distorted. You call it rewriting. I call it reclaiming." Barbs flew, quick, precise, stinging. Piers's usual control slid into careful tension, civil on the surface, taut underneath. Harry's posture, the measured pauses, the faint smirk after each counterette grated. Piers turned a page. "Let's talk family. You've said you want reconciliation. Yet the interviews, the memoir, the Netflix deal, those seem to burn bridges faster than anyone can rebuild them. What have you done to repair the damage?" Harry arched a brow. "Repair? I'm not the one who broke it. But sure, blame me. That's what your viewers want, right? The ungrateful prince who ran away." Piers's tone dropped. "People want honesty. You talk healing, but your actions create more division. Even tonight, you walked in with the same arrogance people accuse you of." Harry's smirk turned taunting. "I don't need to be liked, Piers, and I don't owe explanations to those who profit from criticizing me." Silence said more than speech. Piers held his gaze. Harry didn't budge, even amused. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was a contest. Finally, Piers said quietly, "You do realize the sarcasm and deflection are exactly what turn people against you." "I'm not here to make friends," Harry replied coolly. "I'm here to tell the truth, my truth. If people can't handle it, that's on them." The polite veneer was gone. Piers squared his papers, then set them aside as if to show he wouldn't need them for what came next. "All right, let's get into your truth." The next question would cut deeper. The studio clock blinked its indifferent digits while the room seemed to lean in, listening. "Let's get specific," he said, voice steady. "You've repeatedly said the press hunted you and your wife, and that the institutions around you failed to protect you. Yet you pursued multi-million-dollar media deals, a podcast, a docu-series, a tell-all memoir. Explain the contradiction. Harry's mouth twitched almost a smile, but not. It's only a contradiction if you don't understand the difference between exploitation and authorship. I'm not here for your approval. I'm here to correct a hostile record. Is that what your book was? Piers asked evenly. Correction or catharsis. Because too many readers, it felt less like setting the record straight and more like setting family members on fire. Harry leaned back, fingers laced over his lap. There it is. You want contrition for telling the truth. Not happening. No one asked for contrition, Piers replied. I'm asking for clarity. You say you want reconciliation, yet nearly every public move makes it harder. Why another televised sit-down if peace is the goal? Because peace, Harry said crisply, doesn't come from pretending the bruises aren't there. And yet, Piers said, most people don't heal a family fracture by performing it for cameras. The crew behind the lenses went still, as if any movement might crack the thin glass pane of the moment. Harry tilted his head. You're not exactly a marriage counselor, are you, Piers? No, Piers said, mild as winter sun. I'm a broadcaster asking obvious questions you refuse to answer. Harry chuckled, low and humorless. What's obvious to you isn't the same as intelligent? Then let's try intelligent, Piers said, leaning in a fraction. You've argued parts of the British press are racist and cruel. Many will accept the cruelty, we've all seen it. But when you paint with a roller instead of a brush, you implicate millions who read or work in media responsibly. Is every critic a bigot, or do you simply dislike criticism? Harry's stare cooled. When you've lived what I've lived, you learn which patterns matter. I don't need to pass your exam. 'Tisn't an exam, Piers said softly. It's accountability. Silence pulsed. A light hissed overhead. Harry shifted forward, elbows to knees. Accountability from a man who's made a career calling others hypocrites for ratings. That's rich. Piers let the jab pass, folding his hands on the desk. You've raised safety, privacy, dignity. Legitimate? But you launched a public campaign about private grievances, then bristled when people responded. Are you seeking privacy or prime time? I'm seeking fairness, Harry shot back. You act as if telling my story forfeits my humanity. It doesn't. I'm not a prop for your nostalgia about a family that eats its wounds with silver cutlery. Piers's brow lifted. And yet you sell chapters of those wounds by the page. Harry's smile hardened. Better I sell them than let you steal them. A beat. Piers shifted angles. Let's discuss your public statements about service. You've claimed you still serve the public just differently, but you've also monetized nearly every inch of your narrative. Where does service end and brand begin? Service, Harry said, isn't defined by a building in Westminster or a crest on stationery. It's defined by impact. Then show us, Piers replied. Not the sizzle reel, the substance. What measurable outcomes are you proudest of beyond awareness and applause? Harry blinked, irritation rippling. I don't need to present a spreadsheet for you. You're the one telling the world you're mission-driven, Piers said. .com. A mission is measurable. Otherwise, it's marketing. Harry stared at him like a man deciding whether the cliff was too high to jump. You want numbers, programs funded, veterans treated, scholarships endowed. They exist, even if your show refuses to see them. My team requested documentation from your foundation this week, Piers said, tapping a folder he never opened. We received a one-pager of talking points and no audited figures. Harry's jaw flexed. So now you're an accountant. I'm a journalist asking for receipts, Piers said. You invited scrutiny when you made impact your centerpiece. For the first time, Harry's voice thinned. You think you can bury me in paperwork to dodge the real conversation? I think paperwork is the real conversation when money and moral authority are involved. Piers replied. Harry exhaled slowly, a contained fuse. He straightened, smoothed an invisible wrinkle from his jacket. What's your next trick, Piers? Drag my wife into it. You always do that when you've lost the plot, Harry said. Piers kept his gaze level. I'm not dragging anyone in, but you've made Meghan central to your public story. It's fair to ask how that partnership shapes your decisions. Harry's laugh was bright and cold. Ah, there she is, the specter you can't resist. Say her name, spike your ratings. You should be paying us royalties. I'm not invoking her to provoke, Piers replied. I'm invoking her because you do constantly. You present joint choices as solitary righteousness, then bristle when asked about the team behind them. Team, Harry snapped. You mean marriage? Partnership. Something you apparently can't grasp unless it's on a production schedule. Marriage, Piers agreed, is exactly why the public assesses you both when you ask them to buy your narrative wholesale. Harry's eyes flashed. We didn't ask anyone to adopt us. We asked to be left alone. Piers gave a small, incredulous smile. On a global interview watched by tens of millions, you keep saying, "Leave us alone," into the loudest microphone you can find. Harry's patience finally snapped. What do you want, Piers? A confession? A capitulation? Do you need me to kneel at the altar of your audience and beg forgiveness for not playing mascot anymore? I want an honest answer to a simple question, Piers said, voice firming. Why should people believe you're fighting for principle when every move is packaged for profit? Harry sat back, letting the quiet stretch. When he spoke, his tone was a soft blade. They should believe me because I've paid for the truth in blood, in sleep, in family. Because I walked away from an inheritance to become a person. You call that branding. I call it breathing. Piers let the words hang. And yet, you didn't walk away from the spotlight that came with that inheritance. You carried it tanned, tried to rent it out. Harry parted his lips, then closed them. The cameras fed on the tension. I think we're done with your circular sermons, Harry said at last. Ask a real question or admit you're performing resentment for clicks. Piers's expression cooled a shade. He lowered his voice, choosing precision over volume. Fine. A real question? Do you regret anything? Any choice, any word, any grievance aired, anything you would take back for the sake of the people you say you still love? Harry folded his arms, chin up, eyes bright with disdain. I regret underestimating how fragile the British media's ego is. Beyond that, no, not one sentence. Piers pressed. Not one that wasn't already being sold, Harry replied. I simply stopped letting other people invoice my life. Piers nodded once, almost to himself. Some will hear that as brave, others as breathtakingly self-serving. Harry's mouth curved. Lucky for me, others don't get a vote. Okay, and yet they're the public whose respect you say you want. I never said I wanted their respect, Harry said. I said I wanted fairness. Respect is optional. Fairness isn't. Piers leaned back. The chair exhaled. You've asked for fairness while offering very little tonight to your family, to the audience, even to me. You arrived armed with contempt and called it candor. Harry's eyes hardened to flint. And you came armed with old grudges and called it journalism. A red tally light flickered as a camera adjusted. Someone coughed. The room felt like a match over dry leaves. Piers squared his notes into a neat stack he didn't need. All right, he said. Let's take a brief break. Harry snorted. Need a moment to regroup? No, Piers answered, steady. I'd like to use the next segment to ask about veterans' issues, security, and the charities you've cited. I'll give you every chance to be precise. Harry's stare didn't soften. Precision is wasted on people who prefer outrage. Then surprise us, Piers said. Choose precision. The floor manager counted down on fingers. Lights cooled a fraction. Music swelled and faded as they cut to commercial. Harry leaned forward just enough for Piers to hear. You think you can pin me to your storyboard? He murmured. Piers didn't look away. I don't need to pin you, he said quietly. I just need you to keep telling us who you are. The break ended. The red light returned. The interview resumed with a new set of questions, sharp enough to slice paper. What they would cut next wouldn't be paper. The third segment opened tight on Harry's face, the studio lights catching the sheen of irritation where confidence had been. Piers sat upright, posture calm, eyes keener, now less interviewer, more surgeon, preparing for a hard incision. The space between them crackled static before a storm. Welcome back, Piers said smoothly, voice controlled, the consummate broadcaster again. We've covered your experiences with the media, your views on privacy, and your public role. I'd like to shift to accountability. Harry arched a brow. Here we go, he muttered, a small, mocking smile tugging at his mouth. Piers ignored it. You say you want to inspire change? Yet when critics point to contradictions demanding privacy while signing multi-million-dollar content deals, you label them hateful. Could some criticism simply be warranted? Harry leaned back, crossing his legs. You're obsessed with this privacy line because your profession relies on violating it. You've built a career on gossip, not journalism. Pierce's face didn't change, though a muscle ticked in his jaw. I ask questions for a living, Your Royal Highness. That's not gossip, that's accountability. And viewers might note the man who wrote an autobiography detailing family rows isn't exactly allergic to publicity. Harry chuckled under his breath. Autobiographies? Not propaganda. I told the truth. You should try it sometime. Piers studied him, not angry, measuring how far to let it run. Then responsibility. You've criticized your father, your brother, the institution. Yet I haven't heard you express regret. Do you consider the human cost of what you've said? Harry sighed, amused. Human cost, please. You talk as if truth is violence. I didn't cause damage, I revealed it. And yet, Piers said quietly, you've hurt people you claim to love. That isn't revelation, it's collateral. Harry laughed, loud and humorless. Dramatic, aren't you? That's why your show exists. You need conflict to feel relevant. Conflict. Piers stayed calm. You brought plenty tonight. I've only asked you to explain your words. I don't owe explanations, Harry snapped. Not to you or anyone. You don't understand the pressure of being me. Piers leaned in a touch. Pressure that comes with privilege, security, and a platform most can't imagine. Forgive me, but millions handle pressure with far less complaining. Harry's eyes flashed. So it's a suffering contest now. This is what happens when people can't stand someone stepping out of a gilded cage. Stepping out is one thing, Piers said, each word deliberate. Setting the cage on fire and blaming the builders is another. Harry's smirk faltered. The tension thickened. Do you ever wonder, Piers continued, if you've become what you despise? You say you hate the media circus, yet you feed it with every sit-down, every new version of the same story. Harry leaned forward, eyes sharp, tone mocking. You think you're clever, trying to trap me. It won't work. I'm not the villain. I'm the one who stopped pretending everything was fine. Piers's voice stayed calm, firmer now. And yet your tone tonight suggests you enjoy acting above the rest of us. You've dodged or deflected every question with arrogance. You call yourself a truth-teller, but you can't handle a question without turning it into an insult. I can handle questions, Harry scoffed. I just don't respect yours. It's landed like a slap. Piers blinked once, then smiled. Let's make it simple. You say the monarchy is outdated and oppressive, yet you still use your royal title, profit from it, and insist on its privileges. Isn't that hypocrisy? Harry's smile vanished. His voice dropped to a growl. I'm not responsible for labels the media or the monarchy use. If others cite my title, that's their choice. I've moved on. Piers raised an eyebrow. You're here talking about it, aren't you? Harry's face hardened. You don't get it. I'm not here because of my title. I'm here despite it. You think it defines me. It doesn't. That's your obsession, not mine. And yet, Piers said, leaning slightly closer, you've built an entire brand on escaping it. You've monetized your rebellion. That's not liberation. That's marketing. Harry slapped the arm of his chair lightly. You don't know what you're talking about, he snapped. You've never lived under that kind of scrutiny, every moment dissected, every headline weaponized. You pretend to understand, but you don't. You never could. Piers didn't flinch. You're right, he can't understand that level of privilege. But I do understand responsibility. For 3 years, you've blamed everyone else, your family, the press, the institution, and never yourself. That isn't courage, Harry. It's cowardice wrapped in self-pity. Harry sat a little straighter, voice icy. You think you can speak to me like that because I'm in your studio? You think you have the right to lecture me on courage? No, Piers said evenly. I have the right to hold you to the same standard of accountability as anyone who chooses the spotlight. Silence thickened. The red tally light blinked like a heartbeat. Harry leaned in, voice venomous. You know what, Piers? You're just another man hiding behind a desk because you're afraid to live a real life. You preach accountability while building a career mocking people braver than you'll ever be. Piers stayed perfectly still. When he spoke, his tone was calm, steady, cold. And your career seems built on burning bridges and calling it honesty. Harry opened his mouth, then hesitated just a beat too long. Piers glanced at the producer, then back. We'll take another short break, he said. When we return, we'll talk about integrity, assuming there's any left in the room. Harry glared, jaw tight, face flushed. You think you can intimidate me? Piers smiled faintly. No, Your Highness. I think you're doing that on your own. The lights dimmed for commercial, but the tension didn't budge. The next segment would decide everything, and, by the end, one of them wouldn't still be in that chair. When the red light came back, the civility was gone. The quiet before Piers spoke was charged, like air before thunder. He adjusted his cuff and met Harry's eyes, his politeness edged like a blade. Welcome back, he said. We're continuing with Prince Harry, a man who's redefined living publicly while demanding privacy. Let's see if we can find common ground. Harry didn't smile. Jaw set, eyes sharp, his expression mixed irritation and superiority. I doubt it, Piers, he said flatly. You live off controversy. I live through it. Piers gave a humorless breath. You certainly know how to create it. Harry leaned forward, voice rising just enough for the mics. You invited me to talk, not to be insulted. I've insulted no one, Piers replied, unruffled. I've asked questions you refuse to answer, questions built on bias. Harry smirked. You came for a fight. I didn't realize how desperate you were to get one. Desperate. Piers said quietly. No. Tired, perhaps, of watching a man with every privilege spend every interview pretending to be a victim. The words hit like a hammer. Harry froze, nostrils flaring, then his voice sharpened. You know nothing about my life. You sit behind that desk spewing venom at people you'll never understand. I rebuilt everything from scratch. You wouldn't last a week in my shoes. And yet, Piers said calmly, you spend every day talking about those shoes. Maybe stop polishing them and start walking forward. Harry smacked the chair arm. Patience gone. You think you can talk to me like that because you're hiding behind a camera? You're a coward, Piers. You've built a career tearing people down. You can't stand it when someone pushes back. The studio froze. A producer behind the glass mouthed, "Cut it," but Piers lifted a finger. "No, let it play out." When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, razor-edged. "I don't tear people down, Harry. I hold them accountable. There's a difference. You think you're being stood up to because you've spent years surrounded by yes men." Harry's mouth twisted. "Accountable to whom?" "You. The same man who mocked my wife, my family, my choices on national TV. Please. You wouldn't recognize accountability if it stared back at you from the mirror." "Careful," Piers said softly. "Or what?" Harry shot back. "You'll lecture me about respect. Spare me. I'm not one of your tabloid puppets." "I don't need your approval." "No," Piers replied evenly. "But you clearly need an audience." That did it. Harry's chair scraped as he leaned forward, voice rising. "You invited me here to humiliate my another cheap stunt for views." Piers leaned back, unshaken. "You came to play the victim. I just gave you a stage big enough to prove it." Harry blinked, anger and disbelief mixing. "You're unbelievable. You twist everything. Every time someone tries to tell the truth, people like you, people like me." Piers cut in, tone suddenly firmer. "You mean journalists who won't let you script the narrative? Who won't let you weaponize trauma for sympathy?" "You're disgusting," Harry snapped. "You think empathy is weakness because you've never had any? And you think arrogance is strength because it covers how lost you are?" Piers fired back. For the first time all evening, Harry fell silent, lips parted, no words. The fury in his eyes was more than anger. It was wounded pride. Piers exhaled, straightening a stack of papers everyone knew didn't matter anymore. "I thought there might be something left here, a glimpse of humility, a shred of accountability, something to remind people why they once respected you. Instead, you've shown contempt for your family, the public, anyone who dares question you." Harry stood abruptly, tugging at his mic cable. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this." "You're right," Piers said. "Steady." Harry paused mid-motion, eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," Piers said, turning slightly to the cameras, "this interview is over. I don't reward arrogance with airtime. If you can't handle a civil conversation without turning it into a tantrum, you don't belong on this show." A collective gasp. Even the camera operator hesitated. "You're kicking me off your show?" Harry asked, stunned, double quotes. "Yes," Piers said simply. "Respect is a two-way street and you've blocked every lane." Harry's face flushed. His fists clenched. "You'll regret this, Piers. You always regret going against me." Piers's smile was faint. "I doubt it. And I think the world's seen enough for one evening, don't you?" Harry trembled with indignation, then ripped off his mic. "Unbelievable. You invite me here to insult me and then pretend you're the victim." "I'm not pretending anything," Piers said calmly, rising too. "I'm doing my job. You just didn't like someone who wasn't afraid of you." Harry glared, breathing hard. "You're just another sad man clinging to relevance by attacking people more important than you." "And you," Piers replied. Tone icy, are another man confusing fame with virtue. That was the final blow. Harry turned, muttered something mercifully inaudible, and stormed off. The studio doors slammed, echoing through the silence. Piers stayed put, collected, breathing evenly. He turned back to the lens, the consummate professional reasserting control. "Well," he said softly, a sardonic smile returning, "that seems a good place to stop. My thanks to Prince Harry for his time, what little we had. And thank you for watching. We'll be right back after the break." The camera light died. The tension didn't. The crew sat frozen until Piers finally exhaled. "Well," he muttered, "that was bound to happen. Was Piers to harsh or did Harry go too far?" Tell us in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and hit the bell next week. Another talk show moment that left the world speechless.